So for me, this is not about big strategies and trying to create some kind of parent homeschool project around it. This is about really simple things that teachers do in classrooms that end up landing at home. And for me, there are just three really simple things. Okay, and the first one is praise and recognition, but not just praise and recognition that's nice to experience and a classroom that's sort of wallpapered with loveliness. Praise and recognition that lands on children so that when they go home, they take it with them. And when mum or dad says to them, how was school today? There's a moment there, and a memorable moment. And suddenly they're starting to translate that. I always remember, young children, and I know it's not just me, come back from school. How was school today? Can't remember. That kind of conversation where nothing particular has happened. It was a nice day. We did some learning. It was kind of all right. I want that praise and recognition to really land with that child so they can carry it home. Whether that is in their head, so they're carrying it home in their head, or with young children, we use paper wristbands and we literally tag positive labels onto them, and not just the teachers, other children as well. So we do a lot of work on peer recognition. We do a lot of work on positive noticing, and that praise that lands, that's personal and sincere and meaningful and contextual and really genuinely means something to that child. On top of that, for me, are positive notes. It's an old story. There's nothing new about a positive note or particularly revolutionary, but it translates between the learning space and home beautifully and creates that sort of positive recognition fridge in the home, which, parents just thrive off. And that pride that comes home is so important as well. And the last one for me are positive phone calls. Pick up the phone. In the schools where... And sometimes they call it when the adults change schools. Sometimes they call it Paul Dix schools, which is odd, really odd. We're Paul Dixing it. It's very, very odd to verb my name. But in those schools, every member of staff makes one positive phone call every week without fail. And they all send one positive note home and as much praise as possible. And so let's upgrade the positive phone call. Let's have the child sitting next to you when you make it so they can hear what mum or dad are going to hear when they get home. Let's make it at the right time of day. And let's make sure that the member of staff making that there's some sincerity behind that it's earned and it's meaningful. And for me, it's, and I've been involved in so many sort of parent engagement projects. And for me, it's those things that work really, really well. That positive noticing, positive notes and positive phone calls. And I'll just throw in a last one. In tricky schools, in difficult communities, bingo. I can't say more than that. I worked in schools where you could never get the parents in, right? They wouldn't come up the drive. They were so... They were so traumatized by their own education experience that they just felt that the school had nothing to offer them. And so they wouldn't come for a parents' evening. They wouldn't come if their child was, needing of support. They just would not attend until we put on bingo nights with some wine and, do they call it bingo, Lindsay, in America? They don't.
They do, yeah.
They do, okay. Lotto or something. And we just had them in probably once a month for about 6 months. And then they relaxed completely. Then coming up the school drive wasn't a problem. Then engaging with teachers wasn't a problem. And they'd met them informally anyway. It sounds like such a nothing, doesn't it? It sounds like, oh yeah, nice idea. But actually, it's engaging with parents. Like you mentioned, Becky, we engage with children from where they are. And we must engage with parents in the same way, from where they are, understanding the context of the school and their educational experience and how the community views the school is so important.
Can I just jump in, Becky? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, Paul. Okay. All right. Yeah, Paul, I'm so glad you went first because, oh my gosh, this gave me so many ideas beyond what I was going to say. So I like these new ideas better. So first, to go off of what you're saying as the family members being really potentially traumatized by their own school experiences, I've only ever taught in places like that. And so that has been my experience as a teacher, as well as often I coach in these spaces. And I think for me, everything you said. And then an additional kind of layer of that is from the curriculum lens, bringing in family members as experts. And so having those opportunities that are purely fun, but also to say, hey, we're talking about things that are happening in the news. We're talking about these really big life altering events that are happening, and students are aware of them regardless of what age, and of course we scale the conversations to what age they are, but we're addressing them in some way, and we're engaging family members in that conversation as well. And perhaps a family member has a particular experience or area of expertise around these. Let's partner together. You come in and be a guest speaker. And maybe that's not during class because you work during class. We will work around you. Maybe you video record something and we play it during class. And I think there's this great partnership that can exist when we see family members as experts and kind of co-creators of curriculum as well. I love the idea of memorable moments that you shared as well. And I think that idea for me also really lands, in addition to the positive praise, with the curriculum. So what are you actually doing that is something you're learning about in an academic sense, as well as kind of a social emotional sense that you can bring home, and that frames your dinner conversation. And that's another beautiful kind of organic way to bring family members into the conversation, of what we're learning and doing in class. Specifically, I love the idea of the wristband for younger students. So I taught high school students. And so we did something similar where we would kind of tag with positive praise. And I found that a lot of my students, so I primarily taught actually students from different countries who were new to the English language as well. So there was a vocab kind of gap that we were trying to fill as well. But Values in Action is a positive psychology website, and they developed or identified, I guess, I think it's like 30 values that people demonstrate or kind of have skills in. And so I just put those all over the wall. And then, once a month or so, we would have an appreciation activity. And so throughout, they're practicing praising themselves throughout the month. Then they get an opportunity to praise someone else. And it's very specific. So it's not, oh, you're very nice, which is what it initially was when we invite that. But now it's, oh, you showed courage in this specific moment. And I can point to that. And I'm just thinking of another teacher that I coached who was doing student-centered conferences and realized that the family members weren't able to come in to do the student-centered conferences. So what she did was video during class, students leading kind of a conference saying, these are the skills I'm practicing. These are the academic things I'm good at. And that was kind of something that she could send home to family members, even if they couldn't come into the school. So thank you for kind of framing that conversation. I just wanted to add those pieces.
Oh, it's brilliant. I think, the wristband thing is really interesting because for younger children, we would get the teacher or the teaching assistant to write on the wristband what they'd been doing that day. Not just that they'd been great, but, something about their learning. So the parent then had an ability to pick up, oh, your teacher says that you've been doing some reading with her. Tell me about that. And then you've just got that lead into it. It's really nice. There's a company that specifically, I think it's called Memorable Me or something. I think it's pretty close to that, where they focus on those home conversations and giving parents the information that they need, because very often parents are completely in the dark about what's gone on that day. And if they just had a little window into it, so you're videoing of children and sending that back, that's another perfect way to give them a window onto what's been going on. And I think as children get older, they perhaps, maybe it's just my children, they become more closed about that and more guarded about what's going on at school, because they don't want you to hassle them about their homework or know too much, that the fact that they've got the information is kind of protected. So I think that as they grow older, it's even more important to get those small windows into what's going on in school.